Hello everyone, my name is Jan Cedric Chabal and I'm an incoming first year medical student in the Philippines, and welcome to the second part of my video series regarding my medical school admission journey. And in this part of the video, I will talk about the actual contents of the NMAT. So without further ado, let's start. By the way, if you haven't seen the first part of the video yet, you should watch it. I discussed there the things that actually helped me in reviewing for NMAT, but in this video, I will tell you things such as what are the contents of the NMAT, tips on how I answered each question or each section, my experience when I took the NMAT, and some adjustments that I think I should have done. So first part tests your mental ability. So this is comprised by the subsets verbal, inductive reasoning, quantitative reasoning, and perceptual acuity. Second part tests your academic proficiency. So this is comprised of the subsets biology, chemistry, physics, and social sciences. So let's talk about the first part first. So this test duration is 2 hours and 30 minutes. Personally, I did not take this as an actual test, so I saw this part of the NMAT more like a game, because all you have to do in this part really is to practice. Also, most of the questions here are like the things that you see in online quizzes and some apps and games, and this can actually help you practice for this part. I'll provide some sample questions in the description box, so make sure to check it out. Going on to the first subset, for me, the verbal part tests how proficient you are in reading comprehension and relating words to each other, such as antonym and synonym, etc. It also tests your other reading abilities, such as the 2S or the scanning skimming method. It also gauges how vast your vocabulary is. So for the verbal part, I use the app Vocabulary Builder and Elevate in the Play Store. Vocabulary Builder obviously helped me build my vocabulary, and it also helped me for around 30% during the actual NMAT because I never fully finished the questions in the app. So this app helped me especially to questions regarding synonyms and antonyms. And as for Elevate, it helped me around 50% for the actual NMAT, since there are parts in the NMAT that requires you to read really long passages. And Elevate app helped me to improve my reading skills on scanning and skimming through reading passages. If I remember correctly, Elevate app is a paid app. The good thing about these apps is that you can bring them anywhere. Kahit naghihintay ka sa elevator or while you're on your break, or while eating, you can still learn from these things. The remaining 20% nga pala is just stock knowledge. So if you like to read books, watch films in English language, or love to write, chances are they'll help you din naman for this one. And if you're not like those things, it's fine. Napapractice naman kasi lahat ng bagay. Moving on to the inductive reasoning, so this is the part of NMAT that I really love. Because growing up, I loved logic games and even detective games such as Detective Memoir in Y8. I also love puzzles and logical reasoning. I believe those years of playing puzzles and video games actually paid off when I actually answered this subset. But what really helped me to hone my logical skills better, I just watch YouTube videos. So one of which are those videos on civil service exam. There's a logical reasoning part there. So YouTube channel Solving Math with Leona Lin really helped me a lot. If you're watching this, Ate Leona Lin, thank you so much for your YouTube videos. I really recommend her channel if you want to learn more about quantitative reasoning and inductive reasoning. Aside from YouTube videos, which helped me a lot for about 70% of my score in the inductive reasoning part, it is very high yield talaga. I also tried tests in online and additional logical tests, including the CAM mock test. That comprised to about the remaining 30%. Make sure pala na you have the key to the correction to these quizzes, or at least have some explanation as to why these answers are correct, because you also need to know what that made that answer correct. For the quantitative reasoning, I'm sorry, but this one's pretty long. So instead, I'll just give you references to how I studied for this subject. I also just watch YouTube videos, so channels like that of Kuya Dave Arangan. And again, to Solving Math with Leonaline, help me understand the concepts on how to answer the questions in the CAM mock exams. So make sure to check out their channels, especially to Kuya Dave Arangan, like 100% of these channels. Help me for this one. Also, if you will take the NMAT online, I suggest you do your solutions in a whiteboard. So I'll just show you what I use for the NMAT real quick. So this is the whiteboard that I use for the NMAT. So this is about the size of a pillow. The way that I answer the NMAT is that whenever I write something in the whiteboard, I immediately erase them after each questions and then I show it to the proctor whilst reading the questions. Also, there are whiteboards that are not allowed for the NMAT, such as this one. So as you can see, it has a lot of markings on it to really erase the whiteboard, to have a clear whiteboard for the NMAT. And also this part. So this type of whiteboard are not allowed. Back part, you can see that there are things written in here such as the alphabet. And that's it for the quantitative reasoning. Let's move on to the perceptual acuity. So perceptual acuity is actually my favorite. So for this one, I also just watch YouTube videos and video games also help me with this one. As you can see, talagang puro games, apps, and videos lang tumulong sa akin for part 1. So for perceptual acuity, it's more of like find the difference. You just have to know which one is not the same as the others. Or you need to look for the one that is being asked by the question. You really need a good eye for this part since this could cause your eye to strain. For this one, I watched the YouTube videos of NMAT Study Buddy and I also played online quizzes. Practice lang talaga need dito, promise. I would also give you a tip pala for this one. I adapted this from Dr. my idol. So for this type of question, it might seem confusing at first, but it's one of the easiest to answer. So how I answered this is like this. Koine, 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 ikama, 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 nidham, 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 j, kama, j, kama, j, kama, j. So ABC na lang ang peron. Runs, 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 H, 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 dot, 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 enhancing, enhancing, enhancing. Student, 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 nurses. Okay, PNC na lang ang choices. Medication, medication, calculation, calculation, knowledge, knowledge. Okay, so letter C ang sagot natin for this one. So as you can see, it might look like it took a little bit longer, but once you practice enough, it'll just take you like less than 10 seconds to answer this type of questions. And now for the second part, composed of the hard sciences like biology, chemistry, physics, and social sciences. So for this part, this is actually shorter than the first part, which would only take around 1 hour and 30 minutes, assuming that you are still in the online setting, and if also changed by the CEM. How I learned for this one and the contents in it can be summarized and then into a checklist. So this checklist comes from Ate Sarina. I'm trying to find her YouTube channel, pero nagbago ata siya ng name and I can't find her channel. But if you're watching this, Ate Sarina, I really thank you for this checklist. So this checklist contains topics from the 4 subjects and like 80% of the entirety of the actual NMAT came from these topics. Super ultimate guide talaga siya, legit. Meaning the topics in this checklist would be asked in the NMAT exam. At least that's what I experienced. Do note na possible na may itanong na ibang questions outside of these topics like on PKA, which is not included in the checklist provided by Ate Serena. So I didn't know what that was when I was doing my NMAT exam. Questions like these comprised about 10% derived from topics in the checklist and the remaining 10% did not actually come from the checklist. So to cope up with these remaining 20%, you should just review extra topics for each subset. And from there on, you can use different materials to learn these topics and you could also watch YouTube videos if you'd like. Just make sure that you don't leave anything out of this checklist. Although there are topics in this checklist na hindi ka naman lumabas sa NMAT, but probably because nasa ibang batch lang ako. So, you You have different batches that have different topics. For extra tips on how you should read on each subset, biology, it's just memorization. Chemistry, you should learn the atomic mass of chunks or the carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, and their atomic number. And as for physics, memorize formulas. So there's already a formula provided by Kuya Jerome A. Tan. So I'll try to upload his formula na lang din in the description box. So you should try to check it out. Social sciences, more like application ang talaga ito. So you only need a little bit of memorization for this one, but more internalization since topics in this subset are easy to understand. Medyo madami nga lang talaga, so you really need to internalize that. And that's it for the second part. I will now move on to my actual NMAT experience, or when I was taking the NMAT. So you would need to download a browser provided by the CEM in your account profile or in their site. You would also be provided a practice set in that browser, so make sure you answer that since it'll teach you how to do online NMAT. As for my experience, hindi ko nasagutan yung practice test. So don't be like me for that one because you really need that part of the practice. Also, in the practice test, you don't have the revisit button there yet, but it will be available during the actual NMAT. So make sure that you will get familiarized na lang din regarding that. So revisit button can mark questions which will help you if you want to revisit a particular question, and eto na nga. So on your exam date, make sure that you're well rested and comfortable and nakakain na. It really boosts your confidence talaga once you feel like you've done everything right before you start the exam. Again, I will be saying these, don't be like I was. So you're not allowed to have anything in your space which is within reach. So on the day of my exam, I did not check my devices if they're working. And I also did not put my phone on silent mode. So while I was doing my NMAT, my phone actually ran off, like on a max volume. So my phone was ringing like crazy, and it's in the same room as I was. I forgot that I set an alarm since I supposedly had a class on that day. And I was really worried at that time because I thought the proctor was really hearing that noise. And I can't do anything about it since I can't get up and reach for my phone and to turn it off. So this happened when I was doing my quantitative reasoning, the part where I should have been concentrating really hard. And I'm so distracted at that time and my thoughts are racing, but not because of the questions, but because siguro madi-disqualify na ako at this point, and what's the point of trying? So that time I thought I'm gonna get disqualified for this, but I don't know if it's just serendipity or just a series of unfortunate events. But luckily slash unluckily, my microphone was not working at that time. So by the time the proctor asked me to go around my room, and by the way, the proctor will ask you to show around your room pala. By that time, I thought he'll ask me what the noise was and might ground me for disqualification, but instead I learned that my mic was not working. So he doesn't hear anything on his end. He paused my exam and asked me to get a different microphone, and while getting it, I got the chance to turn off my alarm. So I came back to the room with a bunch of headsets and I put them in the audio jack, and none of them really worked. So the proctor just let me continue na lang without it. But I don't know if it's just my imagination, but I really thought that the time of my exam got deducted by around 3 minutes or so. Again, I might be wrong about this, but I considered na lang this as a punishment for not being prepared for my exam. So once the first part is over, you will have a 10-minute break. You need to tell your proctor that you will take your break na. I did not say to the proctor that I'll be taking my break na. You need to tell them that. And you also need to say that you will move on to the second part already. So after answering all the questions, I said to the proctor that I finished answering my NMAT and that I will close the browser. And there it was. Tapos na siya. It was a real relief when I realized that I finished my NMAT because finally, it's done. Additional tips, don't leave questions unanswered and don't leave them blank. Instead, pick an answer first and mark the question and move on to the next one. So this makes sure that you have everything answered. You can just look at them more later. Kasi naman wala kang sagot doon and you're planning to look back at those questions and you already don't have the time to do so, so sayang naman. So what I did to questions that I don't know the answer of is that I took an educated guess. So how I did this is that I eliminated some answers, like cross out answers that doesn't make any sense. For example, this is not an NMAT question, this is just to show you how I did things. The question reads, who is the Disney character that was almost named Mortimer? We have the choices A, Andy, B, Mickey Mouse, C, Shrek, D, Mufasa. So by process of elimination, assuming that you know that Andy is a Pixar character from Toy Story and Shrek is a DreamWorks character, then you can cross those two out. Then you only have two choices here. And from that, there's a 50% chance of getting the answer right if you don't know it yet. Moving on to the question and answer portion. So this is from Alet from PUP. And I will read her question. When is the best time to take NMAT, especially sa school calendar ng PUP? Thus, usually may certain date na nag-take, mga nag-TIPMED/intermed, when yun para maiwasan. As for the resources that I've gathered online, if I'm not mistaken, those who took intramed or LipMed took the NMAT around the November batch. As for me naman, I took my NMAT on the January batch. The reason for this is that wala talaga akong alam. I didn't know that there are 3 batches at that time, so I just took the one that I think was the most convenient for me when I learned that there are 3 batches, and that I would really like to thank my former classmate, Christian. He told me that I only have like 5 days left for me to apply for the January batch because this was around November, and the NMAT application is to close around that time already. And from that day, I learned that January batch is the last batch wherein you can take the medical school admission applications for that year. For example, the application of UPCM, I think, is around March. You would need to take the NMAT at an earlier date, maybe in the November batch and the January batch, because the actual copy of the NMAT, the hard copy of the NMAT result, will be sent to you like around a month or 2. So personally, I got my NMAT around early March. I was really late at that time because the final application date for PLM was March 31. So, if you would take the batch later than January, then definitely hindi ka aabot doon sa medical school applications who have a due date later than March. So, I suggest that you take it early. And that is it for this video. I hope that you learned a lot. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment them below. I'll try to answer them as fast as I could. So I will be uploading the last video, which is about my experience in NCAT admission. So if you want to know what I did to get in PLM-Med or the pamantasan ng lungsod ng Maynila College of Medicine, then you should really watch it. And that is all for now. As always, stay healthy, stay motivated. Thank you and goodbye.